It was a normal pregnancy. Everything looked great. And I was in labor, and all of a sudden her heart rate just disappeared off of the monitor. It went to an emergency C-section, and they realized that the cord had wrapped completely around her neck, arms, and legs. It was like the longest umbilical cord they'd ever seen. And when she had gotten into the birth canal, basically she got stuck here and it clamped down on everything. And so when she was born, she's completely lifeless and blue. And they got her back, and then she was flown out to a NICU for 30 days. Right before Charlotte's first birthday, we ended up moving to Texas, and we just felt like at that point she had just been diagnosed as blind. We already knew she was deaf, but when it added that blind diagnosis, we felt like there was no access for her in South Dakota. I mean, originally it started as just like Facebook posts that we were posting to like let people know about her, and then it kind of turned into an education piece of like, hey, have you ever seen a feeding tube? Like, here's how we feed her. And then it turned into like designing our own clothing and actually like meeting other kids like Charlotte. And it's been a really cool journey just to see like how many people know Charlotte and have never met Charlotte, and just how big her legacy is for 5 years old. And I mean, and she hasn't said a word, like, but she's impacted the people around her, and just that they want to make it better for other kids too. Charlotte's not getting worse, but she is getting to the point where things are made more aware. And so you start to see those differences that, okay, she can't walk, she needs a wheelchair. She's not talking. What other communication does she have? Or how does she communicate? And different things like that. Or learning that, okay, she's struggling as her lungs are getting bigger. It's not necessarily that she's getting worse, it's just that her problems are kind of catching up. And so we have dealt with quite a few viruses over the few years that have just kind of ended up with like hospital stays that were usually around 10 days. They've been as short as like 3, but usually about 10 is kind of the expected number. And she had a hip surgery, and we ended up in the hospital for like 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, where it just was a really hard surgery, and her seizures kind of started to flare up. And it turns out that she had some medicine interactions, and we were trying to figure out what the cause was, and we didn't figure it out till later. And so that was the longest hospital stay on record, and that was like 17 days. With this one, we're at 110 out of the last 114 days she's been in the hospital, and it's kind of come down to that we've started to realize that she's not bouncing back as quickly, and that we've kind of realized the next one she might not bounce back. And it's not that she's going to die tomorrow, but it's that the next time something happens, she might not be able to recover. And that's kind of what we're looking at. Tomorrow I meet with hospice care and like figuring out, what does caring for her at home look like? Because we have, kind of made that decision not to go back. It's so easy to look at this as like, we're coming home on hospice, and we had a palliative care doctor tell us, it's so easy to see it as giving up. And he said, if anything, it's fighting harder to see like her life be lived out the way she deserves and wants. And so, it's definitely been like a gift of like, hey, this is about how much time you have left. And obviously we know it's not like, they can't just point to a calendar and be like, November 2nd is going to be like the worst day of your life. But it's at a point where, we start to realize the immediacy of what we're doing, and it just makes it so much more intentional.